when two of Pakistan's highest security officials, its army chief, Field Marshal Asim Munir, and the head of its military's Inter-Services Public Relations, ISPR, publicly declare that any future confrontation with India may start from the east and that India can be hit everywhere. It is more than rhetoric. It is a signaling of intent, a preview of evolving strategy, and a warning to policymakers, the military establishment, and the public at large. India's eastern flank, with its dense industrial corridors and porous borders, is now viewed as a legitimate, even preferred, theater of unconventional operations. These words, echoing beyond their original audience, demand to be taken seriously in a world where the boundaries between peace and conflict are rapidly blurring. The importance of these statements is magnified by the contemporary lessons emerging from the Russo-Ukrainian War. In that crucible, we saw not just tanks and aircraft in combat, but a new era of asymmetric warfare brought alive by ingenuity, mobility, and the unrelenting search for the adversary's vulnerabilities. Nowhere was this clearer than in the devastation wrought by unmanned aerial vehicles, drones, against seemingly secure Russian airbases far from the front. At a granular level, Ukrainian operatives, using small teams and mobile launchers hidden within civilian life, managed what years of traditional military doctrine considered nearly impossible: the destruction of advanced fighter and bomber aircraft on home soil, often hundreds of kilometers from enemy lines. To dismiss the Pakistani officials' words as mere psychological posturing would be folly. History insists that threats made in the open are, at minimum, an invitation to rethink old assumptions. If you analyze Pakistani Field Marshal Asim Munir's public speeches, you can see that he is highly religious and not particularly technically gifted. He has risen to power by scheming, planning, plotting, and ass-kissing at the right times. When a person like this becomes the most powerful man in Pakistan, he often ends up spilling the beans on secret operations, either those briefed to him by other officers or the ones he's planning himself. History has shown many such examples. Just 1 week before the Pahalgam terrorist attack, Munir gave a speech about how Hindus are different from Muslims and how Muslims are superior to Hindus. These weren't just random ramblings. In the background, he had already set in motion the brutal killing of Hindu tourists, who were identified by their faith, while Muslims were spared upon identification. It's very difficult for someone this pea-brained to hide details, especially when he's in the company of distinguished people he wants to impress, like the rich and powerful Pakistani NRI community. His speech to the wealthy and prominent diaspora of high-net-worth Pakistanis in Tampa, Florida, attacking India from east, is another example of him spilling the beans on something that may have already been set in motion. Asim Munir referenced a Quranic verse, saying that God would send birds to drop stones on elephants, a clear allusion to Indian industrialists, likening them to the elephants in the verse. Interestingly, within a week, the ISPR chief echoed similar threat, attacking from other side. You have to take him seriously given his background. His father had connections with Osama bin Laden, U.S. intelligence, which tracked bin Laden's meetings after the 9/11 attacks, freaked out when they saw bin Laden had met with a prominent Pakistani nuclear scientist, who is father of the current ISPR chief Ahmed Sharif Shohri. Mahmoud was hauled in for interrogation by the CIA and FBI, of course, with the help of ISI. Mahmoud claimed that he had only discussed humanitarian issues like food, health, and education with bin Laden. He was eventually released, although he was put on an exit control list by Pakistan, as it did with AQ Kayhan, because the Pindi boys, of whom his son is now one, were afraid he would be heisted by Western intelligence and would spill the beans. This isn't likely to be a coincidence. When both the most powerful man in Pakistan and the military's top spokesperson repeat such pointed religious imagery in such close succession, it suggests a deliberate messaging strategy, possibly signaling or hinting at an intended operation or threat targeting Indian industry. Pakistan Army Chief Field Marshal Asim Munir has awarded himself the Hilali Jurat, the country's second-highest wartime gallantry medal, equivalent to India's Mahavir Chakra, on the country's Independence Day, for his leadership during the recent conflict with India. Many Indian were confused why Asim Munir thinks he deserves this medal. You have to understand the As Shekhar Gupta Indian journalist says the nature of the beast we are dealing with. Asim did kill 26 Hindus in Pahalgam. Asim did kill 13 civilians in heavy cross-border shelling by Pakistan in Poonch, Jammu and Kashmir. In his mind, he deserves the medal 100%. Such is the nature of beast we are dealing with. But there is a famous Indian saying, Jitna sajogi utna bajogi. There is a cold method in Pakistan's shift of gaze toward India's east. The region's complex mix, land and riverine borders shared with Nepal and Bangladesh, an infrastructure boom, high-density logistics chains, and ethnic and economic diversity, creates both opportunities and vulnerabilities. If the past centered on the heavily guarded line of control in the West, the script for the future may very well be written in the eastern shadow, where vigilance is thinner, the terrain harder to secure, and the targets more densely packed. But to understand the magnitude of the threat, it is essential to look at how Ukraine rewrote the rules of engagement. Lacking the air dominance or vast missile arsenals of its Russian adversary, Ukraine became, out of necessity, a theater of innovation. Commercial drones were weaponized with homemade explosives. The world saw grainy videos of budget quadcopters dropping grenades through open tank hatches, and then, in a leap of capability, the rise of purpose-built suicide drones capable of transcontinental strikes. The attacks on Russian airbases at Engels, Pskov, and elsewhere were not one-offs born of luck. They embodied a doctrine: strike what your enemy believes is safe, strike with precision, and strike from where you are least expected. The manner in which these attacks were carried out offers sobering lessons for India. In the battle for survival against a far superior foe, Ukraine turned to ingenuity and adaptability, transforming the humble commercial truck into a weapon of strategic consequence. Ukrainian forces, facing relentless Russian airstrikes, began to secretly modify ordinary delivery trucks and cargo vans across the countryside. Instead of warheads or missiles, these vehicles housed purpose-built containers designed to carry deadly drones. The real innovation, however, was in concealment and deployment. The drones, hidden inside the container, could be positioned for launch with the truck parked far from the front lines. With the flip of a switch, the truck's roof hatch would open remotely, exposing the launch rails without alerting anyone nearby. Ukrainian crews, trained to act swiftly and covertly, could drive the truck to a remote field, trigger the hatch, and launch the drone within minutes. Once airborne, the drone would follow a pre-programmed route, flying low to evade radar, on its way to strike deep inside Russian territory. Using this mobile launch system, Ukraine was able to strike at well-defended Russian airbases, catching the enemy off guard and destroying high-value aircraft right where they were parked. The result was a dramatic shift in the balance of terror, proof that with clever adaptation, even commercial vehicles can become platforms for high-tech warfare, delivering precision strikes against seemingly invulnerable targets and rewriting the rules of modern conflict. In minutes, $10,000 drones rendered millions of dollars worth of aircraft inoperable. The Ukrainian teams responsible operated with a blend of underground anonymity, agile tactics, and access to a vast civilian landscape for concealment. The results were profound. Aircraft relocated ever deeper within Russia, resources redirected from the offensive to defense, and a psychological wound that defied easy healing. How might this unfold in India if Pakistan were to apply the playbook? Let us begin with intent and opportunity. Pakistan's military is no stranger to asymmetric warfare. For decades, the subcontinent's security calculus has been shaped by cross-border infiltrations, proxy actors, and subconventional tactics. A Ukraine-style drone campaign fits seamlessly into this tradition, offering plausible deniability and an attractive cost-to-benefit profile. A single successful strike on a refinery, power grid, or airbase could result in outsized economic loss and widespread alarm. The East offers several built-in advantages for such a campaign. The India-Nepal border is renowned for its openness. Crossing it requires no passport, and its length ensures that, despite stepped-up vigilance, numerous crossing points escape close observation. Bangladesh, while exhibiting closer counterterrorism cooperation in recent years, remains a dense and complex border of river, swamp, and urban stretch, where smuggling is a way of life. In these regions, components for drones, small engines, batteries, flight controllers, could be smuggled piecemeal without arousing suspicion. They would be assembled at safe ho. Uses: transported by innocuous commercial trucks, and launched from nondescript fields or back roads, lost in the traffic of legitimate commerce. This Trojan horse approach, hide the weapon in the mundane, made Ukrainian attacks so effective against Russian airfields. Applied here, it would mean drones launched from well within Indian territory, flying low and fast toward an industrial asset or airbase, programmed with coordinates easily gleaned from Google Maps or traffic apps. The operator could be long gone before the first explosion is heard. Imagine the calculus for an aggressor: a drone flown into the fuel dump at an oil refinery in Assam, or the packed flight line at an important IAF base in West Bengal. Unlike a tank or a soldier, an aircraft or an oil terminal is highly susceptible to a single well-placed charge. In a matter of seconds, an investment of a few $1,000s could cost India hundreds of millions. And the public panic: incalculable. For the Indian Air Force, this is not mere theory. The catastrophe at Russian airfields is a blueprint, proof that assets long considered secure by distance and layered air defenses are now vulnerable to comparatively primitive but cleverly applied technology. Imagine the fate of modern Su-30 MKI, Rafales, or Mirage 2000s sitting on bases not hardened against such new threats. The risk is not just loss of planes, but the chilling effect on operational readiness. The reallocation of aircraft to deeper inland or the widespread construction of new hardened aircraft shelters is far costlier and time-consuming than the low effort of repeating such attacks. Taking these warnings seriously obliges a re-examination of the traditional hard and soft shields that protect India's critical infrastructure. Hardened defenses, concrete shelters, reinforced blast walls cannot, on their own, keep up with the flexibility and unpredictability of mobile drone teams. Similarly, technological defenses, radars, jammers, directed energy weapons, must now be arrayed in a layered dome not just around Delhi or the Western Front, but wherever the terrain, intent, and opportunity combine to form a new axis of vulnerability. This is about more than buying advanced sensors or expensive lasers. What Ukraine taught was the value of intelligence, human networks capable of detecting changes in behavior, new people, and the movement of suspect cargo. This is about neighborly eyes, informants in the borderlands, partnerships with local police, and international cooperation, the melding of technological prowess with social capital. The fastest drone in the world is still, ultimately, put on a truck by a human hand. Yet, technology can never be ignored. The detection of small, composite drones is not trivial. Traditional radars struggle to even register them. What is required is the fusion of multiple sensor types: short-range radars to spot low and slow flyers, acoustic sensors to hear engines before they appear, and electro-optic cameras linked by artificial intelligence trained to spot the anomaly in the clutter. These systems must be installed not only around airfields and refineries, but along highways and border approaches, providing early warning and cueing mobile response teams. A multi-layered defense for airbases, India's airborne sword, demands even more. Each base must be a fortress, its perimeter patrolled by CUS teams equipped with jammers and lasers, and its assets dispersed and decoyed. Aircraft, wherever possible, must be stored in hardened shelters, not merely lined up invitingly on the tarmac. Inexpensive decoys can mislead enemy targeting, and periodic dispersal ensures the loss of one asset does not cascade into a strategic wound. However, even the best defenses are penetrable. Thus, India's posture must be undergirded by a doctrine of credible attribution and retaliation. Following a strike, there must be the means to rapidly analyze debris, trace components, monitor communications, and assign responsibility. Clear public communication of consequences, backed by swift and proportionate action, transforms vulnerability into deterrence. For an adversary considering such tactics, the calculation must be altered so that the risks, military, political, and reputational, far exceed any potential gain. Underlying all this is the inescapable requirement for deep integration between intelligence and operations. Data analytics and machine learning can parse millions of truck movements and financial transactions for patterns, flagging those which deviate from the norm. Small, mobile check teams using backscatter X-rays scan cargo in transit. Police checkposts in the heartland learn to recognize more than forged papers. They look for signs of hurried construction or empty cartons that once housed electronics. Opponents innovate not because they are bolder, but because they must work with what they have. When Pakistan's military leadership talks of a new front in the east, it is not a promise of a conventional invasion, but a testament to adaptation. Modern war is no longer bound by front lines. It is everywhere, all the time, waiting for the defender to look the wrong way or rest too long on past assumptions. By internalizing these lessons, India can stay ahead of the threat curve. The enemy's innovation need not be India's undoing. It is the impetus for rejuvenated vigilance, smart investment, and the creation of a security ecosystem as agile as the threats it faces.
हम देख रहे हैं कि पूरे विश्व में आज युद्ध के तौर तरीके बदल रहे हैं। हमने देखा है कि भारत युद्ध के हर नए तौर तरीकों को निपटने में समृद्ध है। हमने ऑपरेशन सिंदूर में दिखा दिया है। टेक्नोलॉजी में जो भी महारत थी, पाकिस्तान ने हमारे सैन्य ठिकानों पर, हमारे एयरबेस पर, हमारे संवेदनशील स्थानों पर, हमारे आस्था के केंद्रों पर, हमारे नागरिकों पर मिसाइल्स, ड्रोन अनगिनत मात्रा में उन्होंने वार किया। देश को सुरक्षित रखने के जो प्रयास पिछले 10 साल में हुए हैं, उस ताकत का परिणाम था कि उनके हर हमले को हमारे जांबाजों ने और हमारी टेक्नोलॉजी ने इनके की तरफ बिखेर दी। रत्ती भर नुकसान नहीं कर पाए। और इसलिए जब युद्ध के मैदान में टेक्नोलॉजी का विस्तार हो रहा है, टेक्नोलॉजी हावी हो रही है, तब राष्ट्र की रक्षा के लिए, देश के नागरिकों की सुरक्षा के लिए हमने जो आज महारत पाई है, वो महारत का और विस्तार करने की जरूरत है। हमने आज जो महारत पाई है, उसको लगातार अपग्रेडेड करते रहने की आवश्यकता है। और इसलिए साथियों, मैंने एक संकल्प लिया है। मुझे आपके आशीर्वाद चाहिए, कोटि कोटि देशवासियों के आशीर्वाद चाहिए, क्योंकि समृद्धि कितनी ही क्यों न हो, अगर सुरक्षा के प्रति उदासीनता बरतते हैं तो समृद्धि भी किसी काम की नहीं रहती। और इसलिए सुरक्षा का महत्व बहुत बड़ा है। और इसलिए मैं लाल किले की प्राचीर से कह रहा हूं, आने वाले 10 साल में 2035 तक राष्ट्र के सभी महत्वपूर्ण स्थलों, जिनमें सामरिक के साथ साथ सिविलियन क्षेत्र भी शामिल है, जैसे अस्पताल हो, रेलवे हो, जो भी आस्था के केंद्र हो, उन्हें टेक्नोलॉजी के नए प्लेटफॉर्म द्वारा पूरी तरह सुरक्षा का कवच दिया जाएगा। ये सुरक्षा का कवच लगातार विस्तार होता जाए, देश का हर नागरिक सुरक्षित महसूस करे। किसी भी प्रकार की टेक्नोलॉजी हम पर वार करने आ जाए, हमारी टेक्नोलॉजी उससे बेहतर सिद्ध हो। और इसलिए आने वाले 10 साल 2035 तक मैं ये राष्ट्रीय सुरक्षा कवच का विस्तार करना चाहता हूं। भगवान श्री कृष्ण से प्रेरणा पाकर के श्री कृष्ण का जो सुदर्शन चक्र था, उस सुदर्शन चक्र की राह को चुना है। सुदर्शन चक्र मिशन लॉन्च करेगा।
Above all, taking the words of an adversary seriously is not a sign of fear. It is an expression of strategic maturity. It signals to every would-be perpetrator that speculation has moved to planning, and that behind every open border and busy highway stands a nation alert, adaptable, and unafraid to rethink the shape of its own defense. India has the advantage of learning from the world's conflicts and from the honesty, even if clothed in menace, of its adversaries' proclamations. The time to act is before the drone is launched and the headlines are written. This is not just a warning. It is both an opportunity and a responsibility to shape the outcome of tomorrow's battles now, by seeing clearly, preparing cleverly, and acting decisively, with a full awareness that the next strike may come not from across a border, but from a truck rolling quietly on the roads of the East. Finally, I leave you with the wise words of the legendary people who are in charge of protecting India.
So our aim is to maintain peace and tell our adversary that you do this and the response will be blurry.
I'm not so concerned about what Pakistan will do in this time. I'm only concerned about what we will do.
Our job is to hit the target, not to count the body bags.